Hi friends, thanks for joining me here on I See Melanie. Today we're going to be talking about the latest TP. Yes, Tyler Perry has released a new movie on Amazon Prime called Tyler Perry's Divorce in the Black. Now, this is only the second Tyler Perry property I've ever watched in my entire life. So back in the winter, I did a review of Mea Culpa. So I'm going to do the same thing this video, but how I'm structuring the video is I'm going to give a very brief high-level overview recap of the plot of the movie, but then I'll spend a bulk of the time talking about 7 major themes or things that I took away from this movie, okay? So let's get into it. In the first scene of the movie, we meet most of the main cast. We've got Ava, we've got Dallas, her husband, and he is at a funeral of his brother, and he's there with his mother and a few other brothers. You've got Ava and her 2 parents who are very loving, very supportive of her, and the father is the pastor of this church. And from the jump, we see that there's a lot of tension between Ava and Dallas, and that Ava's mother-in-law does not like her one bit. We also meet one of Ava's best friend as well as her husband. And so throughout this day, after they've left the funeral, and we'll get into some of the details of this funeral, but Ava's husband is very angry. He is upset with Ava. He's grieving, he's drunk, and later on he goes to a bar and we come across an old friend / fling of Ava's named Benji. And of course, Dallas, the husband, hates this man. And so we go back to regular life. Ava lives in Atlanta with her husband. They live in a gorgeous house. We learn that Ava is a banker, and her husband, we don't really know what he does, but it apparently is hard to get him to go to work. But anyway, and we see quickly that their marriage is going to implode. He breaks up with her in a very embarrassing way at a restaurant. And so after this, she's very upset because she's been a dutiful wife for very long. She's 37 years old. Presumably they got married when she was about 20 years old or so. Anyway, she decides she's going to go to her parents' house, who live about an hour and a half outside of Atlanta in a rural area. They live on a farm. And so they learn all of what she's gone through. They learn all the details of all the abuse that she put up with, but she told them that they raised her to be a dutiful wife. And so she was just doing what she was raised to do. But her father reminded her, he meant in a loving relationship. She saw the example of her parents being in a loving relationship, and he wasn't happy, obviously, that his daughter was being abused by this man. So she stays there for about a week or so, and then she decides, you know what, I'm going to leave him. So she goes back home, and he is very adamant that she needs to sign divorce papers, but we learned that he has learned that the old fling and Ava have been in communication, and he gets mad saying, oh, you've been cheating on me the whole time. It's a lot of back and forth. And the best friend, who has pointed out many times that this man, your ex, is terrible. Let's get this over with. Let's get him out of your life. And so throughout the movie, we see that the husband is stalking her. He's stalking the new lover and all this kind of stuff. Eventually, she does sign divorce papers, but the husband is still obsessed with her. He's breaking into the family home that he no longer lives in. He is harassing her parents, each of them individually, her mother, his whole family ganged up on her father. And he comes after the new lover as well as the friend, the best friend of hers. Like, he's a menace. He's just a menace all over the place. It all culminates with a big to-do one day, and eventually Ava summons him to the house. She taunts him, saying that, oh, well, I'm done with you. We signed the divorce papers. I've got this new lover, and you can't do what he does, and you're a small man and all this stuff. I'm going back home to be with my new man. So that compels her ex, Dallas, to go to the house, to break into the house to confront her. He comes in with a gun. They go back and forth. They share nasty words. It's a big confrontation. I'll go into more details of that later on. But all in all, it turns out that Ava comes to her senses, and because he's menacing her, she kills him. He dies. She moves on with this new man who was a much better fit for her, and that's the end of the story. So again, I glossed over a lot. I will talk about minute details when I go into my review of things. I'm going to start off with one of the first things that jumps out to me right away. And this jumped out to me in Mea Culpa and from all the reviews of different properties Tyler Perry has directed, composed, written, whatever. This seems to be a common thing. Tyler Perry hates Black women. Tyler Perry has issues with women because in all the properties, or most of them, the common thread is the women that are on there are doormats for all these men around them. Ava, played by Meagan Good, she is gorgeous. She's beautiful. She's kind. She's successful. She's got a good job at the bank. They got a great house. And just based on the fact that the husband doesn't really like to work, I'm sure she paid for most of it. Her parents paid for the down payment, so they said. But she has all these things going for her, but she will be a doormat. And it's just like, there's nothing these Black women in these stories can do. Like they're always going to be abused because of Tyler Perry's pen, because he writes this every single time. We see her at the funeral. So he's at the funeral. He's sad. Obviously, she tries to hold his hand. He pulls away. When he takes off after the funeral in a very dramatic way, which I'll talk about later, he leaves without her, doesn't care. She later on goes to his property and she is greeted by his very hostile brothers and mother. And she sleeps in her car to wait for him to come back. She finds out that he isn't even there, so she goes to the bar where he's playing pool to go find him to drive him home. He is drunk, which, he's grieving, so, whatever. And so she tells him, let's go home. And she wants to drive him home. He insists, no, I'm going to drive home because he's a man and she's just some stupid woman, obviously, right? And she insists no. And they get into a bit of a confrontation. And surprisingly, one of his brothers, who seems a bit more measured, told him, no, she's driving you home. And he eventually complies. He is always rude to her. And she just sits by and she takes it. He is so bad that her best friend has compiled a dossier of all the terrible things that he's done to her throughout their relationship. And I think it was a couple of pages. It was really terrible. His disrespect towards her is just on a level that's unreal. He would just leave the house. They have plans to leave together to go on a double date. But because he feels like she's taking too long, even though she's within the time frame they discuss, he just goes off without her. And then she finally meets him at the restaurant. He's drunk, he's belligerent, he's berating the staff at the restaurant. And while they're there, he very publicly announces to the whole restaurant that he's divorcing her. And he has the gall to say this to his friend, who was also there, talking about Black women. This is what he said.
Jim, Black women ain't shit, man. When last time these women supported us?
It's are you for real? Are you for real? The character, but Tyler, this is what you believe. You talk about, wanting to be great for all different Black creators and actors and giving them opportunities and stuff like that. This is too pervasive of a trend for anyone with any degree of logic to not deduce that you have some real big bias towards Black women because you love this. He loves writing stories where Black women are just piled on all sorts of insults just for their existence, he has an issue with Black women, and I don't understand why he keeps perpetuating it. He came from a Black woman, he's employed Black women, but what is his issue? Why does he want to perpetuate this all the time? And I don't know. I just find it to be so irresponsible. And I know this is art. This is an expression of things. People are free to do what they want with their art. But this is so pervasive, and I don't really see how it's helpful. As I mentioned in the recap of the video, Ava, when she's talking to her parents, says that she was raised to be a dutiful wife, to stick it out to the end, divorce isn't an option, and how she did all the wifely duties. She cooked, she cleaned. She also recommended this guy go to therapy as well. But she leads with the cooking and cleaning. And later on, at the end, when she's confronting the ex-husband, she says that a good woman is faithful to a fault. What? Faithful to a fault? Where we learn that this man has abused her in all sorts of different ways, but being a good woman, she wants to be one. She has to be faithful to her own detriment. And it's just such a disgusting message to put out there. At the beginning of this movie, it's very clear that there is a big socioeconomic imbalance between Ava and her family and Dallas and his family. So Dallas's mom was wearing hand-me-downs from Ava's mother, apparently. So we can see the class difference. And so, I don't know, I feel as though the way she was presented, it was like, you can have everything going for you. You can be as gorgeous as Meagan Good is. You can have a good house, job, all that kind of stuff. And this is how you're going to act when a man comes around. You're going to act like a silly, complacent doormat that can just be stepped on by any old man because you're just a black woman. So, and that might sound a little hyperbolic, but I truly think that's what Tyler Perry believes at this rate. I don't know. It's so pervasive in all of his movies and stuff. Like, why does he keep doing this? Why does he keep doing this? And one part that really bothered me too, it came out to be for naught because the husband died at the end. But when Meagan was signing the divorce papers, so she didn't have a lawyer, which I find it very hard to believe that a woman that's successful and who works at a bank and who's, would have to be compliant with like rules and things. So you think that she'd know that there are a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross. She signs the divorce papers so hastily. She hasn't even read the papers that she's signing. And she does it so quickly. Like, I spent more time looking at the paperwork when I bought my new dishwasher, okay? Like, you don't just sign divorce papers like you're ready to go to the party. She came in wearing a party dress. She was ready to go to her divorce party right afterwards. And it was just like, do I believe that a woman or anybody, really a man, doesn't really matter what gender it is, do I believe that they would sign divorce papers so hastily? A 37-year-old woman, like, seriously, like, why is he making women look so stupid? Well, I know why, but it really annoyed me. On the flip side, Tyler Perry likes to treat black men as caricatures. Dallas is portrayed as just a violent man. Like, he has one note. He showed a little bit of vulnerability in that bathroom scene when he was crying after his brother died. That was for 2 seconds, okay? He, again, as I said, he beats her, he demeans her, he spat on her. Anything he can do to undermine her, he is going to do. There was one point where they mentioned that, or I think she mentioned that, she's 37, so she's almost 40. And Dallas said, when you turn 40, no one's going to want to like have sex with her because she's a 40-year-old. It sounds so silly on so many different levels. For one, her husband, Dallas, is the same age as her, or same age range as her. So to say, like, oh, you're going to be done in 3 years, it just sounds so ridiculous. And it's one thing to say, it's one thing if a 20-year-old said that because, they're 20, 40 sounds like it's 1,000 years old or whatever. But when you're the same age, why would you say you're done in 3 years? Because that means you're done in 3 years, or maybe not because you're a man and the rules don't apply to you. It's probably what Tyler Perry wants to get across. But even to write that as part of the screenplay and to have the actors act it out, it's just so ridiculous to me. Anyway. And we learned that the mom raised the son to be angry because for whatever reason, they don't really go into it, the mom pressured Dallas to kill the father. I don't know why. I have no idea. Was the father violent towards them, towards her, whatever? But all we know is that this mother told the son to do paternicide or patricide, I think. I think it's called patricide. Father killing. So he was just born and raised to be angry. And of course, it's the trope that was employed in Mea Culpa. The mother-in-law just has to hate the daughter-in-law. We see at the beginning at the funeral, she hates her. We see later on in the VHS tape that she hates her as well. We'll go into that one later. The son, so Dallas and his brothers, they look like they could be from the age ranges of 35 to 45 years old. They are presented as infantilized boys who are living at mama's house, who act like a feral pack of dogs. Like, it was so weird to me. I don't get it. Like, I don't really know people like this. And again, my life experience is just mine. Everyone lives differently, has different circumstances, but these grown men are at their mom's property or the family property, and they're just acting like a pack of wolves. They look like wolves when they attack Ava's father. It's just so weird, and I don't know why Tyler would choose to present these grown men like animals. Actually, I do know why, but I think it's a bad choice. Throughout this movie, Dallas is just abusing everyone. He abuses Ava, obviously. He's rude to her friend Rona. He goes after Ava's mom. They go after Ava's father. They go after Benji, the lover. They go after Benji's cows, okay? He is a one-note menace to society. He has no redeeming qualities to him. He has no depth. And it's just such a disservice. Again, Tyler Perry is a black man. And like, I don't understand why these simple depictions of black people are just so prevalent in his movies and TV shows. It's just, it's beyond annoying. Okay, so a Tyler Perry production wouldn't be right without something that's completely over the top. And of course, it's that first scene in the church at the funeral, okay? So I'll say this. I am secular. I do not go to church. I find myself in a church maybe 5 times a decade, and that's because I'm either at a funeral, a wedding, or a christening. And I'm Canadian, so I never find myself in a Southern church. And I do not believe that most Southern church services are anywhere near the amount of ridiculousness that this scene was. So, I don't know, I found it very odd that, the dad was doing the sermon, I think that's what it's called, and citing some kind of passage that wasn't positive or didn't shed the best light of the deceased, because deceased, again, is a brother of Dallas who died in the execution of a crime. And so this comes out, the mother gets mad, they go back and forth, and Ava's parents basically say, oh no, he was a bad guy. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember the exact words, but is that typically how things go? I wouldn't think, even if somebody was a bad person, was a criminal or whatever, would the priest or the pastor, I don't know, I'm not religious, would the person running this thing really demean them at their funeral? I don't know, but it's a movie, so of course drama is supposed to be a key element, but the next one, okay, this was too much, man. Okay, this was 7 minutes into the show where the mother gets so frustrated, she doesn't want their hand-me-downs, she doesn't want any of their charity with this funeral. So she tells her sons to take the dead son out of the church. But she doesn't mean the casket. She doesn't want their hand-me-down casket. She wants them to take the body out. So these men go in and take the dead body of their brother and haul him out of the church and put him in the back of one of their trucks, and they drive away with the body because they take care of their own. And this is one of the most absurd things I've ever seen on my screen in my entire life. I do not live in Georgia, but I assume, like any place, there are rules about how you handle a dead body, what you do with a dead body, where you place a dead body. So can people just take dead bodies out of caskets and bury them at their residential dwelling? I don't know. I don't know the rules. I would think not. But in any event, this was the most ridiculous scene I've ever seen in my life. It was so crazy. It was just so over the top. It's like, okay, you know what? I understand that these families hate each other. I got that very quickly, okay? But to go through this, to do something so dramatic, like I don't even really have words. I just thought it was absolutely ridiculous. And, again, only being about 7 minutes into the show, it really set the stage of how terrible the rest of the movie was going to be. So, yeah. There is such cringy writing, dialogue in this movie, and especially when it comes to the conversations between Ava and Benji. So they've left the carnival, they're in the back of his truck just talking and things like that, and then the topic of Ava wanting him to make love to her. She's never been with anyone but Dallas, and she wants him to make love to her, but he says, no, you're a little drunk, and it would just be about, revenge on your husband and so on. And then she says, oh, I feel unattractive. You're rebuffing me. But then he says, no, I don't think you're unattractive. Look at me. I mean, look at me. And it's a gesture towards, him. And it was just like, was this written by an 18-year-old? These are almost 40-year-old people. Do you need to be that direct in terms of how you're feeling at the moment, how your body is feeling at the moment? You don't need to say that. It's just, it was so like, this is written by somebody, oh my God. I don't even know what to say. It was terrible. It was like, who wrote this? And then we get to the scene where Benji and Ava finally have sex, right? So they've come back from her divorce party. She's a little drunk or whatever. And she says, you live so far away. Why don't you stay in my guest bedroom? And then he says, I don't want to stay in your guest bedroom. I want to stay with you. I want to sleep with you in your bed. Something like that. Very corny. It's like, oh my God. Like, do you need to spell it out that way? It was just so, oh my gosh, this was written by a teenager. This was written by a teenager. Oh my God. And then this part really took me out, okay? And then she says to him, if we sleep together, it's just going to be about the sex because I'm a 40-year-old woman, or I'm almost a 40-year-old woman. It's like, and what does that mean? First of all, do you think you can't have sex with somebody because you're almost 40 years old? And whatever, that's ridiculous on its face. But also, do you think that he's going to care? He don't care. You shouldn't care either. It was just so weird. It's like, who wrote this? I know who wrote this. But it was just, oh my gosh, it was so cringy. And honestly, that whole sex scene was very cringeworthy. The choreography was really bad. It was very choppy. It was very frenetic and not a sexy way. It was just so badly executed. And I don't know what was worse, that sex scene choreography or the choreography of the fight that ensued later on when her ex-husband came piling into her house. Dallas was going after Benji, which was so I don't know, it was so badly done because this Benji guy, he's 10,000 feet tall. He clearly spends a lot of time at the gym. He's a big guy. And he was down for he won it eventually, but he was down for most of the fight. It was oh my gosh, I could have choreographed a better fight scene. It was really bad. Another very pervasive thing in this movie was the unsubtle dialogue. So you know how they always say, show, don't tell, for when you're writing movies or TV shows. I also think they should add the caveat, demonstrate, don't tell. So say, for example, Rona, so Ava's best friend. At the funeral, after that whole debacle with the body being hauled off, she says, well, at least the funeral is better than your wedding, or went better than your wedding. And then Ava gives her a look and she says, oh, I'm a straight shooter. It's you don't have to tell me you're a straight shooter, because 2 sentences after that, I could clearly see this woman is a straight shooter. Again, this goes to the writing ability or the lack of writing ability of Tyler Perry's. You don't need to say that. It's stop cheapening your stuff, man. Get other people to write for you, because you cannot write a screenplay. Maybe if you have an overall story arc, you can create the idea of the story, but the minute details of the screenplay, Tyler Perry has no business writing it. None at all. There's a scene of Ava and her mom when they're at her house. they're commiserating, they're crying, they're having a moment and everything. And then the father comes in and he asks what's going on. And they kind of want to shut him up a little bit. And so the mom said, we're on our periods, right? So this is like a joke that I feel as though I would have heard, or I have heard in the 90s sitcom, right? So women are emotional, they're on their period. It's so silly. But you know what? Let's pretend that's funny for a second. That should have been it. Then the father comes back and says, you still have a period? Which is like, he knows she don't. She doesn't have none anymore. But like, did he need to say that? It was just like this Tyler, like sometimes you just have to let things go, you know, just stop writing. You don't need to spell out everything. It was so dumb. It's like, oh my gosh, like again, Tyler, you do not need to be writing these types of things. Another thing I noticed was that there was a lot of misdirection in this movie that just turned out to be bad direction. So there were a few points where I thought, maybe Ava's friend Rona and the husband, I think his name is Jim, were in cahoots somehow with Dallas and his family to somehow get at Ava for some reason. So there are a couple of instances. So like when Ava was talking to Rona about how her mom found the dossier of all the bad stuff. And she asked, oh, did you put her up to it? And she kind of said, oh, no, I would never, in a kind of a coy way. Also at the lawyer's office where Ava is signing the divorce paperwork very hastily, we see Rona and her husband glance at each other a few times. So first I was very surprised to see Jim, the husband, there because I didn't get the impression that he and Dallas were that close, but okay, fine, whatever. But yeah, Rona and Jim are looking at each other, glancing at each other so much and they focused on it. So I thought maybe, I don't know how, but I got the impression that maybe they were in cahoots with Dallas, but they weren't. So I don't understand why that was even written into it. And also another thing I don't understand why is why Jim's cheating was brought up. Because apparently it was a one-time thing that Rona already knew about. They worked it out. And it was almost as if to say, you know, you got a good guy like this, right? So I don't know what he does, but he wears a suit to work. So he has a good job, good looking guy. So no matter what, you got a black guy who has everything on paper that's perfect. He's still going to cheat on you. That's the impression I get because there was no reason to bring that up because it did nothing for the story. It went nowhere. So there are a few nitpicks that aren't really worth mentioning, but I'm going to because I feel like it. Tyler Perry seems to have an affinity for the woman goes on a cathartic run trope. So I know it's that in Mea Culpa too, and we see here Ava's doing it as well. And not to be nitpicky on Meagan Good because obviously she's in fantastic shape, but she ain't a runner. I'm a runner. I'm not the best runner, but I can tell from her form that she is not a runner. And that's totally fine. But I just feel as though, yeah, why is this a thing Tyler likes to show? I don't know. Not a big deal, though. I have a very hard time believing that Mia's parents had one tape that had all these clips right after the other. I'm a child of the 90s. I used to play around with VCR tapes. I used to take them apart for fun. I used to open it up to see all the heads and all the tape going through everything. I love VCRs. I still have my VCR at my TV right now, okay? One time in the 90s, I edited a video using 2 VCRs. And that was a whole lot of work. It was a lot of effort. And of course, it's a VCR tape, you know, they roll back. You can never get things precise. So they don't look good. I was a teenager back then, and I did that for a project, actually. So I didn't do it just for funsies. There is no way in hell that these boomers have a tape that have all these different life events right after the other. And I highly doubt they got their old-ass camcorder and recorded a little bit from when she was 10. And then later on, they went to the next spot on the tape, recorded when she was 15. And then at her wedding and prom and all this kind of stuff. Like, no way. So that was just, again, it's not a big deal, but it seemed highly improbable. Also, let's say, Ava is 37 years old. Let's say she got married young at 20. So she got married 17 years ago. She got married in 2007. I also do find it very hard to believe that they videotaped her wedding. Unlike, it wasn't a professional one. It was just a personal one. I find it very hard to believe that they videotaped it back in 2007. I'm sure they had a digital camera like we all did and took clips that way. Again, this is not a big deal, but it's just another improbable thing that Tyler Perry probably didn't think about. Also, again, that clip of the mother-in-law berating her on her wedding day is like, oh my gosh, like over the top. Let's talk about Ava's wig, her hair. It wasn't the worst Tyler Perry wig I've seen out there, but I did not like it. Actually, it wasn't bad. It was just like some parts were cut kind of choppy, and like my hair is a mess right now, so maybe I shouldn't be talking. But it was just like, oh my gosh. First of all, she was wearing one wig the entire thing. So when they went on that same VHS tape at her wedding, her hair was exactly the same. And it's like, Tyler, okay, you know what? The wig is semi-passable, I guess, but like, couldn't you have gotten Meagan 2 wigs, 3 wigs? You could have done better. Overall, thoughts, the movie was bad. Okay, let's keep it real. The movie was bad. It was just, again, all the regular Tyler Perry tropes were there, and they are not good. He does not need to be writing any movies ever again. He needs to hire writers who are actually skilled, who know how to tell a story, who know how to write a screenplay, the way people actually act, the way grown 37-year-old people actually talk. Ava went from being a complete doormat to a shrewd and cunning, rightfully so, woman in no time. Like, it was just such a flip. And that's not even the worst part of the writing. Again, the overall story was stupid and the dialogue was stupid. It was just not good at all. I think Meagan Good did a good job acting. I think she's a decent actress. I've only seen her in one thing, actually. She was in this show called Deception on NBC like 10 years ago. I used to watch that show before it got canceled, but I thought she did a good job. Cory Hardrict's acting, I think he did the best with what he was given. And Debbie Morgan, she used to be on Young and the Restless. I still watch that show. She's good. And Beyonce's ex-stepfather, he was good as well. Again, they did the best they could with the material they got. The material was garbage, so they can only do so well. But yeah, I wouldn't really knock the acting on this movie. Another thing, this movie had no business being 2 hours long, okay? In my opinion, a lot of these melodrama type movies, they need to be 1 hour and 45 minutes tops. There's not enough substance here for 2 hours. And it really, really dragged. Like that point where she was at her parents' house, that went on for so long, I almost forgot that her ex-husband existed. So anyway, yeah, overall, it was not good. I did see Meagan Good on, I think she was on Hoda's show, the Today Show. And she was talking about it was a great experience for her and how Tyler Perry paid her like way more than she was even thinking of asking. So from that perspective, I'm happy that she has this experience, that she's gotten paid her worth and all that kind of stuff. That's good. But she should also be given material that's good. Tyler Perry should be wanting for himself, for his actors, and for everyone around him to have good stuff to work with. And I read that this is one of a 4-part deal he has with Amazon Studios. So there's going to be 3 more of these things. And I couldn't find out exactly how long the production and pre-production of this movie took. I wouldn't imagine it was very long. It's another rushed appearing job by Tyler Perry. So I don't know what it is going to take for him to take all the notes that everybody has been giving him this entire time. He needs to do better with the quality. At this rate, I don't think he cares. He's a rich man. He has everything set up for him. Why does he care? Why would he need to care? I don't think he does. And so, yes, we get this TP production. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I would love to know what you thought of this. Do you think I'm being too harsh? Do you think I'm being too harsh on the show? Do you agree with me about the actors being good, but the stuff they were given being bad? I would love to know. Please leave your comments so we can start a discussion. And I'll be back here with another video on I See Melanie. Thank you so much for watching me. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you later, okay? Bye.